Kia ora and welcome to this episode of The Amateur Austenite. I'm Frances Duncan, author, Austenite life coach. With me as always is the lovely Rachel Pilwa, Austenite, book buyer, and all-round nerd.
Hello!
Today we're discussing chapter 41 of Emma by Jane Austen. It's the visit to Donwell where they do the strawberry picking. They're waiting for Frank to turn up, doesn't turn up. Jane's like, I'm out of here, and then Frank turns up.
Strawberry picking, always dramatic time. I ain't never picked strawberries before, but I assume.
Very dramatic. So the sucklings aren't coming.
Thank God for that.
And the Highbury world were obliged to endure the mortification.
Oh, the despair. How will we ever survive without them?
But other interesting things are happening. Mrs. Churchill's still sick, and that changes all the time. And Mrs. Weston's pregnant.
Woo! Mr. Weston's got a second chance to be the dad that he wanted to be, that he couldn't be for Frank.
And Mrs. Weston gets to be
Mrs. Weston gets to be a mother for the first time. I mean, kind of for the first time, seeing as she is kind of Emma's mother in many ways. Frank's new sibling. A baby.
Weird, right?
Yeah. People have, big age gaps between siblings. At least this child's only going to have one sibling, the new Weston baby. But it is probably going to seem more like Frank's like an uncle figure, I think, in this child's life than a brother.
They will basically be an only child. Yeah, I could see Frank being the fun uncle.
Yeah. He grew up as an only child as well, with the Churchills.
So we don't see a lot of Mrs. Weston. She walks to Donwell so she can spend the time inside with Mr. Woodhouse. After a certain point, Emma goes inside and sends Mrs. Weston off so she can have the time with her dad. I love the way they look after him.
Just an old man and they just want to keep him company. That's kind of nice. I was watching a show recently, Man on the Inside. Such a good show. And I've heard it said before, but the show reminded me of the saying of, actually, the thing that kills or is the hardest part of growing old isn't the lack of mobility or the lack of independence, it's loneliness. I think it's really lovely how the people in Highbury don't let that happen to Mr. Woodhouse.
Or Miss Bates and Mrs. Bates.
Yeah. No, we're going to visit them. There's probably a lot more older people who we don't see in the story. And I actually wonder if that's, something that Jane Austen tried to do in her own community, visiting elderly relatives or other elderly acquaintances and, making sure that they were looked after.
She lived with her father till he died, and she lived with her mother till she died. Not the mother, Jane. When they were at Chawton, they had an elderly neighbour, Miss Ben, who didn't have much money, so they tried to get her to come to dinner quite often. She was one of the first people they read Pride and Prejudice to, and it was published, and she had no idea that Jane wrote it.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
So they could get an honest opinion.
Yeah. Oh, here's a book written by this random person. Can I read it to you? Tell me what you think. Psych, I wrote it. Can you imagine if the neighbor hadn't liked it and had given it a bad review, and then was like, so I wrote this book.
Mrs. Elton is sad about the delay of her pleasure and parade and every projected party. But then she's like, you know what, why don't we go to Box Hill anyway? They don't have to be here. And Emma separately wants to go to Box Hill. She's never been. It's the place that touristy people go and look at. And she's like, it's close to home and I've never been. Why don't we go? A couple of people will come with her and it'll be small and elegant, unlike the ridiculous shit the Eltons will get up to.
Mm-hmm.
However, Mr. Weston, for some fucking reason, decides that they should meld the two parties together. She had no objection apart from her great dislike of Mrs. Elton, which he was perfectly aware of. But somehow, he still thought this was a good idea.
Honestly, bro, buck up, my guy. How? How could you think that putting these two people together would be a good idea? I feel like everybody else would know.
Being the intimate of a man with so many intimates isn't the sort of thing that you want it to be. He's too nice. He's decided that they should be friends with Mrs. Elton, even though it's very clear that Mrs. Elton doesn't like Emma and Emma doesn't like Mrs. Elton.
It could not be done without a reproof to him, which would be giving pain to his wife. And that's the only reason that I think Emma goes along with it, is so that A, Mr. Weston doesn't get embarrassed, and so that Mrs. Weston doesn't get pain by it.
And again, it's Emma managing other people's feelings so they don't get hurt, even though she's going to be in a really uncomfortable situation. She wanted a couple of people that she was close to. Mr. Weston's like, you cannot have too large a party. And this line,
Yes, you can.
Emma denied none of it aloud and agreed to none of it in private.
Good line.
We'll be silent. We won't say anything.
If this was you and me, we both would have called in sick. So sorry, I've come down. I need to go to bed with a hot break. I can't come to the gathering. I was so excited. I'll just have to go to Box Hill another time. Maybe with Harriet and Mr. Knightley to accompany me instead and nobody else.
Just small party.
Just small
one carriage.
party. Yeah, neither of these people would ever ask Mrs. Elton to join us, so only the three of us could go.
Then it seems like it's not going to happen because of a lame carriage horse. Mrs. Elton gets all upset because we have such good weather for exploring. She loves calling it exploring, hilariously.
She's been there before, though, right? So
Oh, she hasn't been to Box Hill. None of them have been to Box Hill.
None of them been to Box Hill. Sorry,
No,
I was
it's gonna be new.
mistaken. I thought that Mrs. Elton had been to Box Hill before.
No, she's done lots of exploring, but she hasn't in the region of Highbury.
Oh,
Because
okay.
it's all new, and cabbage beds would be enough to tempt her because she just wants to go somewhere. Mr. Knightley says, you can come and see my strawberry beds. And she jumps on top of this. I am Lady Patroness. It is my party. I'll invite people. Don't worry. No young ladies need to do it. I'm a married woman. I can do this. Leave it to me. He comes back with a fantastic line, though. Only one married woman that I'll allow to invite people. Mrs. Knightley. She doesn't exist yet.
I just love that Mrs. Elton, butts in and says, Mrs. Weston, I suppose, as if, that's the only person she can even think of. No, Mrs. Knightley. Until she isn't being, I will manage such matters myself. And I think it's just the perfect... It's not a slight. It's just him being like...
It's a good boundary.
It's a good boundary. And he's
My
like,
house, I get to invite.
And I think it's a really good way to put her back into her place. This imaginary woman who doesn't yet exist is the only one who has the right to invite people to my place until I say so, you know?
She still kind of keeps pushing, though. She says, basically, you know I don't like Emma, but I know that you do, so you can still invite her. Is everyone aware of this except Mr. Weston? Also, what a rude thing to say. And then she's like, don't worry, I will invite Jane. I see her all the time. He's like, no, I'm going to stop at the Bates and invite them. I have a basket with a pink ribbon and maybe a donkey. And they use that slur again. No, we're going to have food in the dining room. We are gentlemen and ladies. We have furniture. We will have meals indoors because he wants Mr. Woodhouse to come. If people are outside, Mr. Woodhouse will feel sick. He'll be so worried about people catching cold. Mrs. Elton suggests herself or her housekeeper helping. Nope, I've got one of those too.
Yeah.
Funnily enough.
Oh, if any difficulty here, my housekeeper's extremely clever, and it's like, if only you were as well.
But she takes it as all for her. I'm fully sensible of your attention to me in the whole of the scheme. You've hit upon the very thing to please me.
I hate her so much.
When he asks other people, they also seem to think it's for them. Mr. Weston invites Frank in a way that is, oh, Frank can totally come too. And then Miss Knightley's like, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, that would be good. It's not going to invite him, but now I have to.
Yeah.
All those people being polite in the face of other people's impoliteness. But if you say no, you look like the asshole when it was them.
You're being perceived as giving a direct cut to that person.
When they're the ones pushing the boundary.
Yeah, it's like, this is my party. I should invite who I want to be there. You don't get to invite other people to other people's houses? The hell? You don't just bring along a random person to a wedding. If you got a +1, you check if that +1 is okay to go with them. No, it's hey, Mr. Weston, you and your wife are invited to this party. It'll be nice to have you there. Great, I'm bringing my son. Shut the fuck up. Smack in the face. That's what I would want to do. Be like, no.
It's been 2 years since Mr. Woodhouse has visited. We don't know how long since Emma. It just says so long. So she has a wander around to look at the place and is just like, it's so nice. This is a lovely house that my family is connected with. She has a respect for a family of true gentility, untainted in blood and understanding. Like, okay. Snob.
Which is kind of where we also get to the, if Harry and Mr. Knightley is, sadly, even though Emma thinks that Harriet is of better blood than there is the tainted blood.
Mrs. Elton has a whole big speech about strawberries as they're at the beds, and it's the same sort of thing that we see with Miss Bates. Only seeing her words, little bits, little breaks, and it's just her talking. Then they go and sit in the shade, and unfortunately, Emma is close enough to Mrs. Elton and Jane to hear what's going on. Mrs. Elton is insisting on taking a post on behalf of Jane. Cousin of Mrs. Bragg, an acquaintance of Mrs. Suckling, and a lady known at Maple Grove. Jane's just like, nope, let's go for a walk. And then everyone goes for a big walk around the gardens and in the limes where it's not as hot. They end up at the end of the garden and they're looking out over some of the Donwell estates. Mr. Knightley and Harriet are there talking alone. Emma's pleased by this, because in the past he would have scorned Harriet as a companion and turned away from her. She's pleased to think that they're
getting along. It's like my best friend and my other totally only just best friend. They're friends now. That's great. I love that.
Emma's just like, it's so lovely here.
I could be the mistress of such an estate.
Like Lizzie.
I love the way that Austen describes scenery. I've never been able to read Tolkien, and then part of that is because it is just all description, all scenery. When I'm reading a book, if I'm skimming it, I'm only reading the dialogue. And if there's a bit in the dialogue where I'm like, oh, I'll go back and properly fully read the paragraph. The way Austen does it, like, she spends very little time on it. It's only like, you know, a paragraph here, a paragraph there. But I feel like it does set such a great scene. You can picture it, okay? Steep hill, you can imagine it on top of a tall hill. You can imagine being able to see, like, all the fields and the countryside, like, below. I think she just does a really good job with how she describes things.
She doesn't describe places or people to a great extent, which I quite like because it allows you to form your own pictures. But if you try and write like that now, people are like, can you describe the thing? What do they look like? Where are they? What is going on? But she just kind of drops it in because it's part of the story. They've now walked to this part, and now they've walked to this part without having to go into great depth.
I guess when it comes to describing characters, it's slightly different because, like, for Austen, we just know every character is a white person. We're not having to have a descriptor. Like, occasionally I'll be reading a book and I'll just be reading it, and sometimes I am just picturing someone who's white, and then they'll say, like, there'll be something later on that talk about their heritage, or they'll be like chocolate skin or something, and I'm just like, which I hate this term chocolate skin as like a descriptor. I'm just like, surely there's better ways to do that. Yeah.
Why is it food?
Yeah, exactly.
Milky white, like, oh.
Although in saying that, I do often say that I'm caramel coloured. When someone say, I'm like, what skin tone am I? I'm like, I'm like a caramel. At this point of time in writing, you just, unless it specifically says that, and almost always books from this era are gonna use unsavory terms like that we wouldn't use now. The politest way, I think, in a book of this era that I would have seen would be like Negro, which is not really, but she's not having to describe her characters in great detail the way that we would now, because nowadays, if you don't describe your characters and say, oh, they're of this ethnicity or whatever, then it's like, oh, why are all your characters white?
I never said they were white.
I never said they were white, but I didn't describe them. It's like, hey, J.K. Rowling, not a fan. She did a great disservice to her characters by being like, the only confirmed Asian character is Cho Chang, which is such a bad name. But the name does tell you this character is of Asian heritage. If she had chosen a better name and had more characters, also Kingsley Shacklebolt, he's black. The name itself for that one doesn't say specifically he's a man of colour, which is fine. Without those names and the way she describes them, it is just like everybody's white. And it's like, that's actually problematic, the fact that she had so few.
Or the Patel twins. But
the Patel twins, yeah. Patel is a very common name, though, at least, as a surname. So, like, that's not so bad. There is just so little diversity within those books. Nowadays, with current writers, it's like if they don't have the diversity, bad. But if they're over-explaining their diversity, just trying to shoehorn this in. There's no winning, honestly. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent.
I mean, we could do a whole episode on the crimes of J.K. Rowling, but we won't.
So true. We won't. Sorry, I brought her up purely just to be like the way that descriptor as like names can be really good descriptors without having to go too far in it, but you need to actually then, especially if you're doing such a big story, have more than that.
Mr. Knightley, he's the knight. He's the knight, he's the gentleman. Mr. Woodhouse wants to stay in his house.
Yeah.
Wood house, very old, traditional. They have lunch inside, then Mrs. Weston and Emma swap places. And while she's in there, Jane Fairfax comes in from the garden with a look of escape. So she's run away from Mrs. Elton.
So fair.
And runs into Emma and says, I'm going to go. Don't tell them until I'm missed. When they come in, they'll miss me, and then tell them I'm gone. I can't be afraid of walking alone. I don't need a carriage. I'm going to be in charge of kids soon. I am tired. I'm exhausted, and I just want to be alone.
I always imagine Jane with a very sickly constitution. During this read-through we've been doing, I haven't really pictured her that way for the most part until you kind of get to this kind of scene. I think part of the reason I always have really pictured her as quite like an almost ailing character is because she is just tired. She's exhausted and she's quiet.
Jane doesn't really get to express herself. Emma says to herself, the more that she betrays of the horrors that she's going through, the continual endurance that she practices to deal with the people that she loves best, the more that Emma's going to like her instead of pretending that everything's fine. Emma does the same thing in a different way to Jane Fairfax because she had to endure Mr. Weston and go, yes, of course, we can invite the Eltons. She has to sit with her father. They're both dealing with similar sort of stuff. It's unfortunate that the people around Jane are much more forceful, like Mrs. Elton and Miss Bates, so she doesn't really get as much of a break.
And she doesn't get as much of a say as well. Jane talks, people just don't hear her. Whereas when Emma talks, everybody stops and listens to what she's saying.
Because of her rank.
Because of her rank. And so Jane gets wildly underheard. This scene where she's talking to Emma might be one of the longest conversations we actually see Jane having. Just the two of them especially.
Well, we get the impression that potentially she doesn't like Emma, but this scene shows that she at least trusts her enough to come to her and say, I'm going, don't tell anyone I've gone. And Emma wants to help her. She's like, I understand, do you want the carriage? No, I just want to be alone. I just want to go. Okay, do what you need to do.
You really see that Jane and Emma do have things in common. Jane knows that Emma doesn't like Mrs. Elton. If anyone understands needing a break from the people you're around, it's probably Emma Woodhouse. It's mostly circumstantial that she comes across Emma, though you could also easily trust Mr. Knightley.
But she knew Emma was in the house and was looking for her to tell her, because if she told someone outside, they might have been overheard. And
no way the Weston, Mrs. Weston could have, but she would want to tell everybody.
And she'd make a big fuss.
She'd make a big fuss. And you can't tell Mr. Weston anything because everyone will know about it. You can't tell the Eltons. Miss Bates would obviously say something. Emma is the go-to person for this situation.
So not long after she leaves, Frank turns up. He's been missing this whole time. And Mrs. Weston's like, what if something happened to his horse? And it just turns out that his aunt was sick again. She had a seizure and needed him with her. But he's pissed. Obviously, we know he ran into Jane and she's like, no, you can't walk me home. People will suspect things.
He hadn't shown up to the party at this point anyway. It's not like anyone would have thought, oh, he's with Jane.
But if they're walking alone together in the country, that's suspicious.
That's suspicious. And if someone else had seen them, they'd probably say to Miss Bates, oh, what was Jane doing walking with Frank Churchill?
What were they doing? Secret assignations.
Yeah.
He's like, I got all the way here. My girlfriend's already gone and it's hot and your father has a goddamn fire. I hate everything. And she charitably says that he should go to the dining room, eat and drink.
He's just hangry.
And to herself says, I'm glad I'm not in love with him anymore. I wouldn't like to be with someone who's so pissed off by a hot morning. Also, he's not acting very level-headed. She's being really good at not getting upset at the way that he's behaving. She's like, okay, you're upset. I see that. Here's an option of something you could do.
Emma is acting as a hostess in this role. She is the one who, when Jane wants to leave, she goes to the hostess. She goes to Emma and says, hey, I need to go. Don't tell the others, but pass on my apologies when they finally realise I'm missing. And then when Frank comes in and he runs into Emma and she's like, well, help yourself to food. And I feel like she is subtly being the hostess of this house.
She's being a good hostess too.
Yeah. She would have known who to invite and who not to invite. She might have wanted to invite Frank, but only because if Harriet's going to be there.
She wants to make sure people aren't left out, but she would also think about who's being invited to make sure that the people got on well together. So the right mix of people, which is a thing that Mr. Weston or Mr. Knightley don't necessarily think about because Emma's got that more social awareness than them.
She's not on the spectrum or a narcissist.
Frank, as soon as he sits down pretty much, is like, when my aunt's better, I'm just going to go overseas. Your aunt and uncle will not let you. But I should travel. I don't want to do nothing anymore. I want to do things. I'm sick of England. I'd leave tomorrow if I could. She's like, you are sick of prosperity and indulgence.
Mm-hmm. She's calling him out on his shit. You have a really freaking good life. You have to cater to your aunt, but you're also really lucky that you've had this wealth and you can do what you want. That you can go overseas alone. Like, shut the hell up.
Other people don't have that option. Go and eat and drink a bit more and you'll feel so much better. And he's just, maybe I should go back to Richmond and everything sucks. And she's like, well, we have Box Hill tomorrow. You said you're going to come? Yeah. Are you going to stay and you're going to come? And he's like, no, I don't want to. Well, then don't, then go. Well, it's just this ridiculous argument. And he's like, if I go home, I'll be cross because you'll all be doing stuff without me. It's like he's stamping his foot.
This is the fourth child Emma's looked after so far, after her father and nephews. It is such a childish way for Frank to behave. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to do anything. And then, I don't want you to do anything without me because I've got FOMO. Buddy, pick up your britches and get with the program. Going back to, as soon as my aunt gets well, I should go abroad. He thinks she's going to get better. The only reason I'm not going overseas is because she's sick. Emma does make a very good point of your aunt and uncle won't allow you to go overseas. He's been kept close all these years. You know, he'd never come to Highbury until after the wedding. Obviously, we know that part of that was because he had met Jane and didn't want to leave. But before that, his aunt and uncle hadn't even allowed him to travel to see his father in a long time. Buddy, they're definitely not going to let you go overseas.
So he decides to stay. Because the very next day they're going to go to Box Hill. So they haven't done anything for ages and then it's, we're going to Donwell to do strawberry picking and then we're going to Box Hill. It's like the perfect storm.
Mm-hmm.
And shit gets messy.
I get really bad secondhand embarrassment. And the next chapter is probably one of the worst chapters I've ever read to trigger that. I think a lot of the times I've read Emma, I've skipped the chapter, skimmed little bits, and then I just skip it and go to the next one because I know what happens and I hate it. Like, it's really well written. Like, even sometimes when I've watched the movie or the series or whatever, I'm like, we're just going to fast forward slightly through this bit because I just can't handle it.
I do the same thing. It is an incredibly painful, awkward chapter.
Yeah.
So you've got that to look forward to. And that was chapter 42 of Emma by Jane Austen. I've been Frances Duncan. This has been Rachel Pilwer.
Bye.
Thank you for listening and we wish you happy reading.